Hi, Juno News. Alexander Brown here. Great to see you for another week. I'm the director of the National Citizens Coalition. I'm a writer, communicator, campaigner. And while you're here, please take advantage of our great discount. For more from Juno News, that's junonews.com/notsorry for 20% off. It's Remembrance Day, and Don Cherry wants you to wear your poppy. Are you wearing your poppy? I hope you are, because we're seeing poor uptake. We are seeing activist courts that are fighting to ban poppies in the courtroom. The poppy is not supposed to be a political symbol. We're talking basic human decency and national pride here. It certainly brings to mind Don Cherry's infamous, to me, just famous, infamous implies it's a negative, you people speech, where he's not just calling out our new Canadians. He's letting everybody know that they should wear their poppy. It is an appropriate way to be respectful of our country and the sacrifices that were made to found it, and to our great veterans. Let's go back and look at that terrific speech.
You know, I was talking to a veteran. I said, I'm not going to run the poppy thing anymore because what's the sense? I live in Mississauga. Nobody wears, very few people wear a poppy. Downtown Toronto, forget it, downtown Toronto. Nobody wears a poppy. And I'm not going to. He says, wait a minute. How about running it for the people that buy them? Now, you go to the small cities, and you know those, the rows on rows, you people love, they come here, whatever it is, you love our way of life, you love our milk and honey. At least you could pay a couple of bucks for poppies or something like that. These guys pay for your way of life that you enjoy in Canada. These guys paid the biggest price. Anyhow, I'm going to run it again for you great people and good Canadians that bought a poppy. I'm still going to run it anyhow.
Love you for it.
Ron McLean giving the thumbs up there before knifing him in the back. Now, where did Cherry's prescience get him other than being fired for being right too early? And where are we now? We showcased this heartbreaking video on Friday that I wanted to revisit. Aired on Saturday, filmed on Friday. I wanted to revisit this Remembrance Day, where British World War II veteran Alec Penstone shared heartbreaking remarks that he feels like we've wasted that ultimate sacrifice. Please take a look.
What does Remembrance Sunday mean for you? What is your message?
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye those rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, though, at this point?
What we fought for, and what we fought for was our freedom. We find that even now it's darn sight worse than what it was when I fought for it.
Oh, Alec, I'm sorry you feel like that, because I want you to know that all the generations that have come since, including me and my children, are so grateful for your bravery and all that for service personnel. And it's our job now, isn't it, to make it the country that you fought for. You absolutely fought for.
Is it.
And we will do. We want to...
I'm so wonderful to know there are people like you that can spread the word around.
And that for what? That job to make it worthwhile. It falls to us to make up for the fact that he is right. We are wasting this, not just Britain, but Canada, where there is now a beautiful display outside the Senate of poppies falling, and just a stone's throw away, scenes of utter degradation. At the Rideau Center, the migrants camped out in front of the U.S. Embassy every morning. You have gangland activity right down that street. It is a disgrace, and we have allowed it to become so. It is, of course, the fault of our cowardly politicians, and that cowardice is as contagious as courage. So be courageous. Let's talk to a young conservative thought leader, a terrific columnist, Geoff Russ, who's been writing about Remembrance Day and does terrific cultural work. He works with the National Post in the resource sector, a publication known as Without Diminishment. Thank you for joining us for this chat. Geoff Russ joins the show. Geoff is one of Canada's most influential opinion columnists. He works in the resource sector, has columns in the National Post, Spectator Australia, Modern Age, and is the editor-at-large and co-founder of Without Diminishment, a new publication to which I contribute as well. Geoff, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Alex. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Now, for our audience, and we believe in modeling behavior, we're taping this the day before, but how are you spending your Remembrance Day?
Well, I will be down at the Cenotaph over on the North Shore, and I will be there with the vets who are still there and all of their family and friends and the people who wish to pay their respects, as I always do.
Wonderful. I think I'm going to join you because my calendar's free. It'd be wonderful to be there to actually practice what you preach. My wife and I went for a trail run this week in North Vancouver. We're also in the Lower Mainland along with you, and the North Vancouver Cemetery has a beautiful cenotaph and display, and the crosses row by row. It's wonderful to see, and it's important to remember and to commemorate because I don't know, we're all kind of looking around in public right now, and there's an Ipsos poll from 2023 that touted that 72% of Canadians claim they're wearing a poppy in the lead up to Remembrance Day. Sadly, we know that's a lie. If you were to ballpark that actual number, what would you suppose uptake actually looks like now, and how concerned would you be about that?
In a good year, I would say 33%, sadly.
Yeah.
I look around the mall, I see 1/3 of people wearing a poppy. I see less veterans with them. I have heard that the lack of a tap machine has also contributed to people not being able to purchase the poppies or make a donation. I don't think that's true because I do see the tap machines with every single basket. So I'm not sure I buy that. I think people are
Yeah.
simply complacent. Now, in fairness, some people don't want to put a pin through their acrylic or polyester coat. I understand. Sometimes people come back from the gym, they don't have one. But I think the both of us wear poppies to the gym, so maybe that's not a good excuse either. But either way, it is complacency. It is forgetting and laziness overall. And I do we blame the people? No, I don't think so. But I think the institutions that we rely on to keep this memory alive have not done a good job upholding it.
Yeah. No, we obviously forgot ourselves. We're in the same camp when it comes to national identity and symbols and defending as such, where, if you can take down a John A. Macdonald statue for a few years or board it up, it stands to reason that perhaps the poppy would become less important to the public as well. We are modeling a behavior that is inconsistent with our former values. We have museums that seek to teach about decolonization and not our history. Now, I think today about Don Cherry. I think you're a fellow Don Cherry aficionado. I think it's safe to say he was right, and perhaps the crime he committed, and no crime at all, was being right too early, even if they were just looking for an excuse to fire him. Off the top of the episode, we showcased his famous or infamous "You People" speech. It was spun as expressly bigoted as an excuse to fire him, but we know that he was correct, seemingly, about the lack of buy-in and integration when we shared these remarks, and he's being proven more right by the year. What's it going to take to reverse some of that trend among new Canadians and even our apathetic citizens, as you pointed out?
Well, I hate to say it, but when people talk about politicizing Remembrance Day, it's already been politicized. Let's
Yeah.
get that out of the way. You had the mayor of Calgary, the former mayor, I should say, thankfully ejected in last year's election, Jyoti Gondek, last year going on a big tirade about settlers, colonization, and all of that nonsense on the Remembrance Day ceremony itself, which completely subverts the occasion. You had officials of the city of Toronto on the same year perform the exact same routine. So it does get away from the root, which is remembrance, and it puts it into a very divisive territory. These topics like decolonization are not in any way, shape, or form universally accepted. I would say more people than perhaps the current governments would like to imagine. They do reject them.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, the holiday, well, I don't even know if it's appropriate to call it a holiday, this day of remembrance, simply loses its meaning. There's something unifying about remembering. And when you insert what are effectively culture war topics, then it destroys that. And so I would say it's already been politicized. And if you want to defend Remembrance Day, you have to engage in that politicized process. And that means actively telling people to wear a poppy, why you should wear it. And maybe there's a bit of shame involved in that too. Shaming those who don't wear them.
I'm okay with shame. I think we forgot the power of shame the last 10 years. I think there's even an argument that maybe we always needed the Karen. Maybe we needed a cultural bulwark to remind people that, you're supposed to return the shopping cart. You're supposed to these little acts, they add up to what is culture. On that North Vancouver trail run my wife and I were on over the weekend, you see this beautiful cenotaph, but it's tucked away. It's a gorgeous cemetery, but we were the only ones there, and there was a sadness to that beyond just mourning our dead and their sacrifice. And then you get back onto the main trail, and you're just passing hundreds of people where if you wouldn't know that Remembrance Day was going on if you didn't look down and notice it on your own lapel. And so I'm okay with shaming these people. I'm okay with shaming some of the elbows up crowd who lowered the flag for so long and are now, seemingly buying new flags on Temu or Amazon because it's politically convenient for them to do so. This is not supposed to be political. It is supposed to be, this is a thing for us to be proud of. This is just this basic buy-in, this basic expectation.
I completely agree with you. And again, old Canadian, new Canadian, I don't see the poppy on either group. If they can be called two groups to begin with, it seems to be a fairly universal decline. The only consistency I would say is among the elderly tend to wear them in much greater proportion from my own observations.
Yep.
People in uniform tend to wear them. People in the downtown business district tend to wear them a little bit more, but I wonder if they wear them when they're off working at the pub.
Yeah, that is a good question. No, but it's true. It's not just a you people as in a new people. It is, we're seeing Gen Z, we're seeing younger millennials. Guys, step it up, talk to your friends, shame them, guilt them. They should feel guilt over this. Now, Geoff, you're making waves as a young common sense voice in Canadian politics. This is going to be me putting you over for a second, as I tend to do as we're collaborators and co-conspirators in our common sense work. You were recently even listed by a popular conservative influencer on Twitter as the #1 guy to follow, and folks can do so at Geoff Russ 3 on Twitter. For the record, I finished second. Surely there's no shame losing out to you because you're great at what you do, and I'm proud of you. But I wanted to highlight that expanding influence for our audience of your work. Tell me about your recent powerful Remembrance Day piece you wrote for Without Diminishment, which has been shared by so many in the Canadian political sphere, and then let our audience know a bit more about that project.
Well, the Remembrance Day piece I wrote in reaction to the memory of Jyoti Gondek, like I said, that whole process of bastardizing the Day of Remembrance to suit fashionable, but I would say corrosive, these sort of I would say just anti-Canadian movements overall, ones that delegitimize the country. And delegitimizes the country, especially that the soldiers of World War I and World War II fought for. If you look at the recruitment posters, if you read their letters home, if you look at what caused the conflict, it was very much an imperial patriotic war to start. And if you start to treat that Canada, that old imperial Anglo-Canada, if you treat that as a foreign country, then you remove that history from our own. And it becomes very easy to just start beating it over the head and browbeating the historical figures involved in that. So when they talk about these soldiers fought for inclusion, they did not fight for inclusion.
No, they
plain and
sure
simple.
didn't. Yeah.
Now, can you make an argument to say that Indigenous volunteers volunteered to get their place in society? Sure. Was that the overarching drive of the war? No, this was not a war. I don't think what war has been fought for inclusion. That's a better question. So this was never a war for inclusion. This was certainly not a war for decolonization. This was a World War I. It was a war for the empire.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful colonial enterprise that has ever existed. So it is historically incorrect. I would say it's morally incorrect to even take the sacrifice of 50,000 Canadians, which Arthur Mead referenced in his speech. There's 50,000 Canadians who now lie buried in France and Belgium. So to take that, ignore the motivations, ignore the letters home, ignore the recruitment posters, and try to claim this day as part of your, let's just call it the anti-Canadian ideology, I find very disgraceful. So I want to put those thoughts onto paper, so to speak. It's online, it's not on paper. Yeah. But I'm very glad it was shared. Some very famous names did, both privately and publicly. So I think there is a widespread frustration among the population, whether the people be leaders or ordinary citizens. And I think it's important to harness that, because if you don't defend Remembrance Day, like I said, you are ceding it to the people who have the bad intentions.
You wrote this great piece in the National Post on the cultural barbarization of Canada. And I want to bring it up on my screen, not just show it to your readers, where you wrote, Jeffrey, Whether it be drug-infused murder, terrorism, or political arson, there will always be an idiot to be found at a university or NGO that will justify it with the mental gymnastics of subpar intelligence. Tell us how you really feel. There is no excuse for the barbarization of Canada, and refusing to crush that transformation in its tracks is a choice made by governments at all levels. This is obviously a moment for remembrance and to think about, all the utmost wonderful qualities of our heritage and our upbringing. Why do you also worry about this growing barbarization in Canada?
Well, this is a high trust, peaceable, orderly country, and that has been the goal of it since Confederation. I would argue even before.
Yeah.
So for us to try to normalize old world blood feuds
Yeah.
in our streets is to me a complete disgrace. It's dangerous, for one. It puts citizens in danger. And we have seen since the October 7th attacks, you have seen the Middle Eastern blood feuds, decades old, being played at synagogues being burned, stores smashed, campuses stormed. It's just unacceptable. And it's not to say that there has not been a response from the authorities, but they seem reluctant to raise their voices about it. Why not make it a moral outrage? Why treat it as a troublesome but maybe potentially electorally dangerous issue to tackle? And to me, that just screams cowardice. And when you said drug-infused murder, we had people with their limbs severed in Vancouver among the homeless population.
Just
It's
walking to
terrifying.
work too. That one guy was just walking to work, and he
Just walking to work.
took an axe and lost his hand.
People have been shot with crossbows.
There was the
It's
lady on
out
the
of control.
why we choose to live here. Good question there. But there was that lady on the seawall the other day who stabbed 9 people.
Yes, 9 people, and you wouldn't even hear about it today.
No, and she would be someone to be de-escalated and taken care of. The way that we more post-national protests in Jewish neighborhoods in Toronto over the weekend. Surprise, surprise! The police and the police chief in Toronto are talking de-escalation tactics. It's like, or there's no embassy there. What are we doing? This is intimidation. This is bigotry. This is post-national slop.
I cannot agree more.
Geoff, where can we find more of your work?
As you mentioned, you can find me at Geoff Russ 3 on X. You can find my work in the National Post under my name, Geoff Russ. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute, big shout out to them. They were in Vancouver last week. Maybe Juno News in the future. That would also be fantastic. Modern Age, when I am published there again. And Without Diminishment, as always. And maybe on your show if you invite me back.
Anytime, pal. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Alex. Cheers.